So I'll just turn. There we go. We are live on Facebook.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Love Speak Love, Julie Dhara Roberts.
Thanks for having me, Denise. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's my pleasure. Always a pleasure to either chat with you live or watch you chat with someone else. I always really, the geek in me loves the geek in you.
Thou must geek.
All right, thank you everybody that's joining us. I might just share things out actually. Just bear with me one little second.
I can share it to Sology if you want.
Yeah, please. That would be awesome. I don't have many places that I can share to. And once I'm live, I can't remember which ones I can and which ones I can't. So I don't share to that many groups because you get told off with some people's groups. All right, that's that. Here we are. So while people are gathering, we'll do a little heart-to-heart connect, I think. And breathe. So if you're in a position to do so, not if you're driving, but if you're in a position to do so, I invite you to bring your awareness to your heart space. Close your eyes if you wish to. And breathe love into your beautiful, beautiful hearts. And on your out breath, breathing out anything that your body is ready to let go of. Anything of the day so far, or the week, any stresses that there may have been this week, just let them all go. Any emotions that you're ready to let go of, breathe them all out. And as we breathe love into our beautiful hearts and into every cell of our bodies, and feeling your heart expand as you breathe love into its beautiful essence. And extending that heart awareness out to the heart of Gaia. And feeling us being held within Gaia's beautiful, beautiful heart. Feeling Gaia's love entering your body, entering your heart, entering your feet, entering your crown, entering your hands. So your body is filling up with Gaia's amazing energy, with her love. And extending that heart awareness out to the heart of the sun and feeling the sun's beautiful energy, the sun's beautiful love moving into your heart, into your solar plexus and into every cell. And extending the heart awareness out to the heart of Source Creator. And feeling the love, the beautiful energy from Source Creator moving into your heart and into every cell of your body, into your crown, moving down your spine, your spinal column, down that column of light. And feeling all of our hearts joining together as one. I'm getting a vision now of a beautiful golden grid of light all around the earth and going deep into the core, deep into her beautiful heart. And just feeling the presence of the dragons and the galactics and the fairies and the angelic realm. Anything you would like to add, Julie?
It's perfect as is.
All right, so just giving your body a bit of a move. And if your eyes are closed, just opening them whenever you're ready. Just took a few seconds. Here we are at the end of 2021, at the start of 2022. And it's just been such an easy ride this year. I don't think anyone's had anything big going on. I'm sure I'm telling the truth. How are you and how are the energies for you?
I'm doing great. The energies are everything. Off the charts, amazing. Depths of the muck and mire, transformative. Every single piece of every single spectrum has come through this December. And I feel like we're in this culmination. I feel like normally this time of year, I'm looking forward at like the alignments for the upcoming year. But this year is really different. Like this week to me feels very much like a wrap up. Like I'm not that I'm not allowed, but I very much need to be present with, we have a lot of astronomical things happening and have all of December. But this like December 18th, was the full moon, and the next new moon is the January 4th. And this, like, there's a thing every day, like this whole time has been really present moment centered for me. So even, my human brain was like, oh, I'm going to go out with Denise. I should like talk about what's coming. I'm like, nope, it's like, be here now. So that's what I'm working on this week. And it shows up in lots of ways.
I find it hard to differentiate between 2020 and 2021. It's like those 2 years got merged together like no other 2 years have done. I think I'm going to struggle in the future to kind of look back on this and find differentiation there.
Well, the place where I can differentiate is the last year around this time. It was December 20th, maybe 21st. We had the Saturn Jupiter conjunction. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of like a bit, like, at least it was. So the stuff that's going on Earth is going on Earth, and that's getting a little like repetitive and old to talk about. So it's like way more fun to talk about what's happening in the sky, because it does have that potential. So if we talk about like what was going on in the sky, because Earth, I agree, has like had a similar kind of crests and troughs, but that conjunction that was just about a year ago, the Saturn Jupiter. And then they've been moving away from each other in the sky since. And then Venus has sort of taken up station. So the evenings this fall have been Jupiter, Saturn, Venus in the night sky. And I don't know, we're just launching in. I guess like Venus is moving. Venus is going to be invisible for a bit in the beginning of January. So Venus, you might notice it's like lower and lower every day, or you can see it less. It's like brighter and lower on the horizon, and you can see it less time, but it moves to conjunct the sun January 8th. But anyway, you didn't really ask me about any of that, but that's like, we're in this time of, there's like a lot of things unfolding. So I feel like for myself, it's on make sure things are closed and cleared from last year. That's the duty I'm on this week.
Yeah, nice. I hadn't consciously put it into those words, but yeah, I feel
it's been tons of ancestral family line, super big time for me. December 12th that 12/12 date and the 12/21. And there's been a lot of like bookend, like opposition-y things, bookend things, like feel the polarity of things pulled to their maximum and then like brought back to unity.
I have where the houses are here. So there's a busy road outside, and there's houses opposite, but there's like a dip. And through that dip, there's a tree in front of it, but through that dip at sunset, which is very early, like sunset is before 4 o'clock. And there's this huge planet, and I'm not sure if it's Venus or Jupiter. It's in the south, and it is very low.
So they're sitting like just after sunset. Is it still twilight? You can see it.
Yeah, and
And
later.
if it's low to the horizon, that would have been Venus. Like Jupiter's is up above it, and it's not as bright right now as Venus.
Right. I thought at first it was Venus, and then I wasn't sure if it was Jupiter. I was going to send you a photo, and I thought, well, like, you know.
That's cool that you have a little like vignette, a Venus vignette to look at. What parallel are you on, Denise? Where are you? Do you like what parallel? 45, 48?
I have no idea.
What's your longitude? You have no idea. Okay.
I'll check that out.
That's all right. Doesn't matter.
I'm curious now.
I'm at 42 because you said that our sunset is at like 4:20. So if yours is earlier. To me, that indicates either you're more north towards the North Pole, or
yeah, I reckon I'm more north because I'm kind of just below Scotland.
Okay.
What was the word you used? The
latitude.
Latitude.
Parallel, or I asked you what some people are like, oh, I'm on the 33rd parallel or the 44th. But that's not that important. You don't have to look it up now.
54.2439 degrees.
54?
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder it gets dark so early.
I'll just check that is. There's also a Pickering in Ontario. So I'll just check it's, yeah. And 0.7776 degrees west. Oh.
So you're on like the prime meridian?
Must be.
Basically. That's cool. What a wonderful placement.
It's cold and it doesn't get much daylight at this time of year. On the shortest day, it was 7 hours and 19 minutes, I think. I'm going to mute myself in a second because there's a siren going past. Okay. I loved that line of planets that we had fairly recently. I think it was the Moon, Jupiter, Venus, Uranus. So they were in a line on the sky.
Yeah, they are. It got a lot of press on the December 12th, which was cool because of where the moon was, but the planets are all still in that line. It's Venus is with Pluto and Mercury actually right now, like towards the bottom of it. So you can't see Pluto unless you have telescope, I don't think binoculars, but telescope. Mercury, you can see sometimes, but it's with Venus today, actually. Did I write it down? It was yesterday, the 28th, Venus and Mercury conjuncted. So they're right near each other in the sky. So Mercury goes really close to the sun. Anyway, but that's you can't see it, Mercury as well as Venus. So you kind of use Venus as a marker to look. So they're still near each other. So we've had full cloud cover here, so I haven't get to see any of these. I'm just playing with the feel of them. But then, yeah, so Mercury, Venus, and Pluto are down there together. And then in Saturn, Jupiter, and then Neptune and Uranus are in that line. And the moon has kind of been going through, and the way that they're spaced is very interesting. Certain months, it's going to happen again in January. It happened in December. It happened in November. just somehow the stations of where the planets are right now, the moon moves once a night and it like pops onto where Venus is, and then it pops over to where Saturn is, and then it pops over near to Jupiter. So, and then that kind of famous blurb that went around on Facebook a bunch had some of the minor or dwarf planets in it too. So they talked about Pallas and maybe Ceres. Ceres is in that line too. But what you said, you loved it. Did it feel aligny for you, or made you feel happy, or
yeah, it wasn't so much the feeling. I just loved that you could see that for many reasons. And I think it encourages people to look at the sky and actually connect with the planets. I think I saw, like, because the houses were in the way, but I could see, I think it might have been on the 13th, not on the 12th, so it wasn't quite the same lineup with the moon on the end, but I could see like a couple of them when I went out into my yard. But we've had a lot of cloud cover as well. I saw the sun today, and I can't remember when I last saw the sun. I think maybe 2 weeks ago. It's been really dense cloud cover, which is warm. But I do miss seeing all the stars. And there's a comet as well, isn't there, at the moment?
There has been, yeah. Leonard.
I saw a photograph of that, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, that's been dancing right in. It came near Venus and Pluto, right around that same. It's been here in December in the night sky, quite visible. I haven't seen it either, but I've seen pictures of it. Great, those of us in the cloud-covered north get pictures from friends.
So in terms of what's going on up there, how is that being reflected with what's going on down here?
It's a beautifully vast question. What do you mean, how it's like in our personal lives or on?
Because planetarily, I have watched some of the, I know you don't work from a astrological perspective, you're more from the astronomical perspective and what you know about the planets, which is a bit different. But it does feel like it's being played out, like, you know, what is going on in the skies appears to be being played out in terms of, you know, constriction and yeah, anyway, I will let you share.
Yeah, is it okay if I wax a little differently than, because I don't have, I can talk about what they mean like more in like a personal, like my life way instead of a global way. But we're in this cycle. There's a couple different things I think that are being squoze at the moment, and one cool alignment that will be visible that we end the year with, so I feel like it's an important one to talk about, is Mars with Antares. And that's not anything we've talked about thus far. It's not that lineup of planets, but the Antares is the heart of the Scorpion in the Scorpio constellation. And Antares got its name from the ancient Greek astronomers of like, because when you look up at the night sky, they both have that orange-red glow. So they both would look kind of the same. Really the other one is Aldebaran that has that orangey glow, maybe Betelgeuse too, but mostly stars have more of a blue. So the red ones, the orangey ones kind of pop out a little more. So anyway, Antares, it was the name in Greece for the Antares is like the god of war. You know, Mars is like the god of war, the god of power, the god of that kind of struggle action, where that got that name. So that red kind of volcanic, sort of more masculine, like warrior, like Mars has that reputation, right? But Antares was called that because like, oh, that's the one that looks like Mars but is not Mars. So they were also called, and there's a whole mythology of them being rivals of each other. And Antares in the Greek mythology was in pursuit of Orion, and they had like some sort of struggle, you know, guy, hunter, warrior struggle thing. And whatever Greek god put them in the sky opposed to one another, so that Orion is across the way from Antares. But anyway, Mars is coming up to a conjunction. So Antares sits pretty close to that lineup of the planets, or that ecliptic where the sun and planets flow. So Mars does come around every few years to align, but the Mars Antares thing is almost like a double dose of power, if you will. So maybe one could see that as like a squeeze point. I've been looking at it. It's interesting that one is a planet and one is a star, because those are very different things, right? Like the sun, and I think you follow Sandra Walter's work too. Do you watch her stuff and go to her webinars and stuff? She's been saying for a couple of years that the Earth is taking on a solar quality. Like the Earth's heart, the Earth is becoming more star-like as it ascends. And that's just one of those things, like people think Cher, like her, says the thing and then you put it in the banks, like, I'll have to unpack that in a few years, like, like the seed planted. But it came back up, it bloomed for me when I was sitting under this Mars Antares. So they, they're here together all week. When two slow moving bodies are in the sky, they move in relation to each other. And there is a time astronomically where they say like, oh, they're in exact conjunction, but it's, it's a broad swath of when we're under the influence. So we're here now. And the star and planet meeting each other that are kind of like doppelgangers, if you will, in the sky. Like they're, some people call them rivals, if you look at the pure mythology of it, but they're counterpoints is a better word, right? So it's like we have our terrestrial self, that's like the earth-based self, that's like our physical body and our physical form and our dwelling and where we live on the earth and that kind of thing. But then we also have our celestial dwellings, or some people would call it, more the stuff of the, that we can't see, the angels, or all the things you mentioned at the beginnings, the dragon realms and the galactics and the angelic realms and the energetic quality of life. So in some ways, the stars have that more of like celestial, because Mars is a rocky midget like the Earth is. It's a terrestrial planet, a rock planet. But the Antares is a star, and quite a big one. They say if we put Antares in our solar system, where the sun is, the sheer size of its sphere would go out past Mars. Like it's so much larger than our sun. So it's like it would engulf the Earth. We'd be sitting in the sun right now, if Antares was our sun. So it's one of these like super giant, like super gaseous. So I think a lot of us have been betting. We have so much plasma coming in right now. I mean, the solar flares are happening, and we have, M-class flares, and we have the solar activity that's sort of burping plasma codes at us. We also have this Mars Antares, more of the like galactic, or like other star system plasma stuff coming through. So I don't know, that's a lot of things. It's hard to differentiate some of these, but they're all kind of coming through as this packed thing. So the do you want to say anything about any of that before I go on?
Only what's coming in is something about our fire. Like, I don't even know if I can put this into words, but something about almost like our inner planetary fire and our inner galactic fire kind of coming together, as if it's really helping us to burn away all that stuff that we are presently really keen to shed. Does that make sense?
Sure. The Mars and Antares and the crescent moon are going to be visible in the morning sky December 31st, just before sunrise. So Mars is right now morning planet. So you have to catch the dark sky before dawn, and you'll be able to see Mars. But it comes up, it's only the small little window of being able to see that planet. So because by the time the sun comes up, it's not that far ahead of the sun. They conjuncted. Mars was with the sun, or in the sun's glare, in October. So it's just kind of coming out of it now as a morning star. But the moon, Mars, Antares, end of the year, last sunrise of the year thing feels very like the moon is coming to bring a little bit of that cooling lunar or more feminine balance to things. The other big player I'll say, has been the Mars and Venus. Mars and Venus as working as polarities of each other. Because Venus is one of the only planets that spins counterclockwise or clockwise, whatever it is. It spins the opposite way of the rest of the planets. So Mars and Venus have been we're in this quarter of they're doing a triple conjunction. Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but in July, Mars and Venus conjuncted. And I got a lot through that time of Merkaba type stuff, like them being the two intertwined. I think a lot of us had that Merkaba energy and planetary Merkaba too. And I went back and looked. I can post it under here if people want to see. I wrote an article about it in July. And I was doing my year-end review, I'm like, oh, what did I, just kind of going through my own blog and looking to see what I had shared about this year. Like what was important to me, because that's made it onto my blog. It must have been. And that was the July. So they were together, Mars and Venus were together, July 12th, 13th. They were in opposition, opposite of each other, early November. I think it was November 8th. And they'll be coming back together. So February 12th, 2022 and March 12th, 2022, they're coming back together again, Mars and Venus. So there's so I think I mentioned this to you, like, what do you want when you messaged me to see what we wanted to talk about? I was like, there's been this Mars, Venus, and then Mercury's been joining, where the three of those planets have been kind of moving around each other in kind of, I call it a dance, sky dance. Lionsgate in August, those three planets worked through Regulus, and I got through the Regulus and some other stars in the Leo constellation. And they were very much this like head, heart, core trio. Like core is like gut and roots with Mars. Venus is like the heart, and Mercury is like the head. So this is a long kind of rambling history. That's like what's going on Earth right now is like, how do we keep how do we keep our heart and our mind aligned to our core? Because our core is like the place that is our inner sun, that is our inner light post, that is our inner source light. So the core of us, like you did the beautiful meditation to start us off, like that core is where you know what's to be true for yourself and for your family, the people you steward and keep guardianship of. And the Earth right now is full of like heart, like polarity of the heart, the emotional reactions to people who are doing it differently, and like judgments from the mind of doing it differently. So for me, it's really been December is just like, I have to keep coming back to like the quiet, still place of my gut knowing in my core, and not let there's so many pings up into the mental, like, where the fear lives and the judgment and the like the narratives and the or in the heart, it's like, we have those big eruptions, like this is going to come and this is going to, whatever side you're on of the things. It's like, this is going to, take over my life in this way, or this is going to happen in this way. And it's like, every time I know just for myself, this like daily minute by minute practice, because it's like, that you asked what's going on Earth. It's like, we're living like in a minefield, right? It's like, you could like there's like triggers and quagmires and like explosions and quicksand all around, right? So it's like treading like magically and get like just trying to stay in the field of like, because we all know that we create our reality with our thoughts and our emotions and how we give things. So it's like, how do we dial ourselves back from whatever news report we just watched, or dial ourselves back from whatever mandate just got passed, or dial ourselves back from whatever external thing. It's like these things are being lobbed, like we thought it was bad, it's like they're being lobbed more and more even. And it's like, okay, I just have to like retreat isn't quite the right word, but like recenter into my soul center, into my gut and knowing, and which is not always it's like it is that warrior's battle, or the warrior's battle is to be peaceful inside and to really know that you have your own sovereignty and you have your own expression.
Yeah,
let that be the thing.
That's amazing. Thank you for speaking that. And I found this year more of a challenge to keep out of the fear. I found myself in the fear way more than I did the year before. Still able to recognize that, but not as easy to get out of it either. Not as easy to shift myself. Like it's taken more effort. And also acknowledging that and allowing myself to feel that, and not just being like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel fear, and not just kind of like, really pushing it out, but allowing myself to really kind of feel it too, and not bypass it in a way. Um, but feeling that I'm not in my heart space. So wanting to come back to that space, or your heart core, as you called it, like wanting to come back to that feeling of being centered. That's been more of a challenge this year. So thank you for speaking that, because that kind of not explains why exactly, but it kind of it does partially. It's like, well, no wonder when all this stuff is kind of being beamed onto the planet.
Being dumped on the planet, did you say, or
Beamed. Being beamed.
beamed to the, yeah. It's like the other piece that this comes from, not earth plane, or it is earth plane, but if we just talk about it as like sacred geometry, some of the coding that came through for me this year was to revisit, I forget what it's called even, but the platonic solids are like nested into the planetary orbits. Copernicus, I can't even, like I told you at the beginning, my brain has been like, we're in the Mercury today. Mercury and Pluto are conjuncting. So it's not that has anything to do with it, but I do feel like the like data points that normally are at my disposal to grab are just like completely gone. But why was I bringing that up? Oh yes, the nesting, like almost like Russian nesting dolls. One of the philosophers put the different platonic solids within the orbits. So between us and Mars, he could construct or draw a dodecahedron, which is the 12 pointed. So that dodecahedron has been coming out. Have you noticed that? Like people are talking about, I have anyway, in my geek circles, people from really different walks of this play are like putting them and their sister, one of my friends is like, oh, I put my friend and my sister and I into the dodecahedron, and it completely revamped our relationship. And you hear other light workers talk about like working with the dodecahedron as far as the grid points. So that is like an Earth, Mars pass through, or like filter, if you will, or sacred geometry. Between Earth and Venus is the octahedron. So it's like we're in this like octahedron, and like a lot of folks are like, the octahedron has been coming forward as a tool for us to use in these times of balance and power. And if you look in a wide swath, for a lot of people that work with light codes, sound codes, energy codes, and sacred geometry, the dodecahedron and the octahedron, that's the double pyramid one, have been coming through as really powerful tools to use at this time. And I feel like that the Mars, so in July, at least here, I'm not sure if it was global, but there was this like feeling of release with the current, with the pandemic and the global, like it had this like freedom code quality in the summer. And it's interesting that like now this whole fall and winter are back into that, like, it's like you had that feeling back of like, whatever that was, that freedom eruption. And now it's like, oh, here's another revisit to that feeling of constriction and uncomfortableness and squeeze. And, there's another one of those on. So it just helps if anyone's listening to this that can feel that way too. It's like, what can we do in these times where we're being repressurized? Like, what did we learn from the first few rounds of the pressure? Like what I've learned for myself is just to know that I have my own core and I have my own back, and like, I'm going to do it the way that works for me and my family. And just to stay in this like sweetness of that, and like work with the love and work with the surety of things going with the flow of love and light and dialing into the highest trajectory and really focusing on building the new and rekindling relationships and like, you know, all of it, like making things anew, building anew. But that July point where the Mars and Venus conjuncted, and that whole, I felt like the planetary Merkaba kicked in a new way or got upgraded. And now we're kind of in this whatever, all the old is being like squeezed up to the surface. You're like, didn't we think that that blackhead of whatever it was on Earth was like popped enough? But apparently not. Apparently we needed another facial, another squeeze session to get the rest of the goo and gunk out. So I feel like that's kind of where we are right now. And there's a lot of Pluto stuff. You know, Pluto is one of those planets that gets the reputation of like going deep into the dark depths and like alchemizing and transforming and death and rebirth and like tearing down. And so
interesting.
But Mars and Venus conjunct again in February. So we're kind of like already over the hump. If those two are if that is part of what the diamond squeeze is.
Just remind me, the dodecahedron. So it's got.
Keep talking.
It's got triangles and 5-sided penta. Is that right? It's a combination. The dodecahedron, this is very geeky. The dodecahedron, I don't know as well as the other platonic solids. Like I recognize it when I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's triangle.
Triangle. It has 12 vertices, 12 points. So it has that like, you know, the 12 strand. I feel like it's doing a lot of the 12 strand DNA activation-y stuff, but also the ancestral lines.
Yeah.
And like whether it's terrestrial ancestry or galactic ancestry, it's like really doing it's helping with the DNA recoding.
Yeah. Oof.
That's the dodecahedron.
Wow, I can feel so much extra energy coming through. Wow.
Yeah, so it is composed of, let me check, it's all triangles. Yeah. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's equilateral triangles, but I can look at it. And then the octahedron is I'm sure you're more familiar with that one.
Yeah.
For people that are. Yeah, the visual shows all the things, right?
Yeah. And I guess the angles of the triangles, the angles of they must be different.
For
all the different, because triangles obviously appear with a tetrahedron.
Oh, right, yes.
An octahedron,
yes.
but I'm guessing that the angles of the triangles must be different in all of them.
Yes.
When I was in Glastonbury, I had this amazing experience in the Abbey, and it started with bees, and it culminated with me getting a really strong vision with 6 different beings, and I had this hexagon around me on the ground, and then another one came up at the side, another one came up at that side, one in front and one behind and one on top. And I was like, how can I fit these together? Because obviously I can't directly, because that would be a square. If it was 6, it would have to be a square. But I kind of knew that there was some kind of geometry that would fit them together. And I eventually found it, and it was triangles, and I think it was 5-sided. I think it was pentagram, would you say it was? So it was some unusual geometry, and someone had managed to like show what it would be. I'll send you the.
Cool. Well, the platonic solids are much more known, but they're also the Archimedes solids. So that's a whole nother branch, and I can't. My linear brain won't pull up what all those are, but they are a whole. Yeah, it's like a different construct of shapes and grids and whatnot. So one of the Archimedean solids is more like a soccer ball. How it's some pentagons, some hexagons. But yeah, like you basically a sphere of hexagons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I found that on the way to looking for this, and there's some geo something or duo something dome as well. Someone wondered if it was that.
Oh, a geodesic dome?
Yeah.
Like a Bucky sphere?
Yeah.
Well, that's what, like, people that use shungite.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Shungite puts that
Yeah.
out in your field. That's like how it's protective, if you will, from 5G or signals, or people use it for purifying water. And so
Now,
how did that when did you go to Glastonbury?
I went a few times this year, and there's a little shop there called Portal, and they do all these amazing geometries. So this, I'll just sit forward, get a bit closer to the camera. So this is supposed to be the heart, the geometry of the heart. So I don't know. I think they might be octahedrons placed in together, but they are four-sided pyramids, I think.
Well, that's that's one of the Platon. That's this one. It's Metatron's cube, basically.
No, it's different. It's got more sides, I think.
Oh, cool. I can't really see it.
The angles of them are different.
Awesome.
It spins. So I went in the shop trying to see if the man in there could figure out what shapes I would need in between all the hexagons to join it all together. Yeah. Squares and triangles. That's what it took. And he was, bless him, he was drawing these hexagons and trying to stick them together and trying to see what was missing in between them. And he spent ages, so I felt kind of obliged to buy something because he'd spent so long trying to help me out. So I bought this. Which I love. Now, one thing that I wanted to make sure I asked you about. So I know with the work that you do and just in general, you are very connected to the elemental realm, I think. I mean, dragons, I know I've heard you speak of, but I wondered if you had any experiences with fairies, if in your work or whatever you had experienced fairies and what that would look like to you or how you might perceive that, and any information on them that you would like to share.
I wish I was gonna say 6-year-old, now 7-year-old was here, because she's really the keeper of the fairy lore and knowledge in our house. So my intellectual answer would be like, no, that's not, like, I don't really have a lot of info. It's not really my thing. They don't, I respect them, but they aren't a big part of my work. And then simultaneously, part of me is laughing at that, because like everywhere we go, we're building fairy houses, and every place we go, like we go to the fairy trail. And my daughter asked Santa for, it's like, Santa knows I need the indestructible fairy kit, the special fairy kit that me and all my friends asked Santa for is it's like indestructible limbs and this. I was like, what's the indestructible? It's between her and her friends and Santa. So, it's like where there's a constant fairy presence in my life. So I guess what I know about it is like magic, wonder, return of childlike essence, joy, playing in the woods. Magical creatures are real if we want them to be. Just like, like, am I to say this is any more real than my daughter's fairy? It's like Antares are real because I want them to be. Fairies are real because we want them to be. And but that's what they bring to me. And like if they come through in the work or in light work, it's like laughter and light and effervescence and playfulness and like I was gonna say trickster, but that's not quite the right word, because that's like more of like, oh, you're taking all this stuff too seriously. Like, have some fun and play and be outside and be in nature.
And hiding things like your keys.
Oh, well, that's interesting. because I live with someone who likes to take things and hide them, but I never had equated that as her fairy avatar self coming up. I will tell my husband that when we get home. That's a fairy. Is that a fairy trickstery thing to like hide things?
You know how when you have leads for things, so like, power leads, how they and ear things, how they always get tangled.
Oh yeah. Like necklace. Yeah, like yeah.
I might say that's the fairies too. I think it was Brian Froud in his fairy pack had the name of a fairy that does that. That was his job, to go around in the houses and tangle up all the things that need to be tangled up sometimes.
Cool. And there's a way, I'm just like, I'm hearing like there's a cross-generational reference point for them too. Because like my mom is her lineage is Irish. And so she's like, when she went to Ireland to visit, she was like, she's like, they take it real over there, in a good way. Like, but she was like connecting with my daughter, but it's like a grandmother, granddaughter, it doesn't have to be just the girls, but whatever. That's how it is in my family. The like cross-generational connection to magic. Like somehow the fairies are the bridges to like all hearts and all inner childs of all ages to really let their frolicky forest self, like if you're going to talk about, talking to trees, but it almost like, I was going to say legitimizes, but that's not quite the right word, but it makes it more tangible. How about that? I feel like maybe their elemental spark is to, because I don't know, I don't really, talk to my mother so much about my talking to stars and talking to galactic beings, but like we could talk about fairies all day, that's like an acceptable, sort of universally acceptable way to talk about magic. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you. And I'm getting a nudge to ask you about something that I haven't heard you share about for ages. Oh, my mind's gone blank. What's the word? Sasquatch.
That is so funny that, not even funny that you said that, but I was thinking of them today and I was like, when you asked me the question, it was like, well, the fairies are really just the mini Sasquatches of the forest. Like I play with Sasquatch. I don't know if anyone else has overlap with those two, but they're very diminutive and large. But what about Sasquatch?
I seem to recall that you've felt them and that you've had like connection with them. And I just wondered if there was anything that you would like to share of your experiences.
Sure. Yes, for sure. I have had connection with them. My connection has always been telepathic, vibrational, but very strong communication in that way. Maybe it was 2018-ish, maybe around this time of year, that I first made conscious connection with them, from me to them. I can't say how long they've been trying to connect with me on the other side, but there's the most loving, kind, like sweet, nurturing quality to that relationship and connection point. And it's very different for me than like the hairy beast in the woods kind of thing. It's like I don't like go looking for them in the physical, but they do show up sometimes like in the woods here, or not that I see them, hear them necessarily, but they're like in the gifting realms, or like connecting with them strong through the trees. And a couple years ago, remember there was a Saturn, it was January like 12th, 13th, and there was a Pluto and Saturn connection. And there was a lot of grid workers that had traveled to Uluru in Australia, and that connection to that work. But they came through again in a large quality with the Saturn energy, and something about their ability to time walk, like walk through space and time, because they're really, to me, more of a, as much of a galactic being as they are earth plane being. And they shift and move through space-time. And a lot of people associate them with, like, you know, that quality of multidimensionality. And they have sort of popped back up to be like, remember us, over the last few weeks too. So it's, and when you asked me that question about fairies, whatever, I got that, like, well, we're really just like, you just play with that, like Sasquatch fairies. And I had never really pondered those two as like a interesting combo.
So if they were to, because people associate Sasquatch with the US, but my feeling is that they are everywhere. And I had a feeling that they knew kind of where all the interdimensional portals were. So would go into an interdimensional portal to move from one place to another. But I'm picking up from what you say that they might not need that they are the interdimensional portal, that they may not kind of like
use portals. Say again?
No, you feel they do use them?
Yeah, and I don't, the first quality of Sasquatch that I connected with was actually not indigenous to here. It was more the Yeti, like silverback, like from, so one of my Andaras, it's not here with me, it's at home. So I use the Andara crystals a lot, or how they show up for me as, like, you know, if you're on the hold of a ship and you have like the portal, like a portal itself, but almost like a mirror between dimensions, and like beings sort of like put their faces into the Andara and like show themselves, you know, almost like a peephole through a doorway.
Yeah.
And all kinds of interdimensional beings show themselves to me through the Andaras. So my silver Andara, maybe the third Andara I ever connected with, purchased, got to live with, had my daughter actually accidentally knocked it off a shelf and it shattered and broke a bit, which was at the time upsetting, but it also unlocked a whole bunch of codes from it. So, but I looked at it and it looked at the shape of like K2, one of the mountains in Tibet, on the India-Tibet border. And then I was looking at it on the windowsill and it came through like this side profile of an ape-like figure. It was like a Sasquatch, very clear. And so that came through. And then for people that don't maybe work in these realms, like I use the Andaras, you know how the ancient yogis would use candle gazing or a yantra. Like a mantra is the thing you say, but a yantra is a mandala or something that you gaze at. So you do a meditation through gazing, soft eye gazing, almost like those hidden pictures they have in the newspapers, right? You just like use, a lot of us use the Andara crystals as, meditation isn't even quite the right word, but like as a connection point. So you sit with them and like all kinds of, you know, either you have it in dreams or you can sleep with them and some information comes through in dreams. You can sit and meditate with them, connect with them. But so it would be a long story to like say how all the pieces come together. But this crystal had this shape and I saw it, like it was very mountainous to me. So I connected which mountain it was. And then like, it was almost like a Sasquatch being like stepped through my silver Andara. And it was a silver-backed Sasquatch being. And it was, and because you talk to like, or you communicate with different dimensional beings. It's not always, doesn't come through like I would send you an email and it would be like words, you know, it doesn't come through as like language like we're used to. It's like codes. So it's like flashes of images or flashes of things. So that was the first time I connected with Sasquatch. So you asked if they were just in the United States. So for me, my connection point was Himalayan region. They must be all over the globe. And I don't consider myself in any way like an expert on them or have vast resources of knowledge on them, except for like the privileged moments that I've had in this communication. And there's been a lot more too, but we don't have, we'll have to talk about that another time. A lot of like these little, but I find they pop up and they'll like, I'll be working with them for a bit and then they sort of go quiet or we're just not working together as closely. And then there's sometimes it's an astronomical moment or sometimes an earth-based moment. and I just like hear from them again. But it's interesting you ask, because it has been the last few weeks. And I'm like, oh yeah, even on the drive here today to come meet with you, they were like in the field of my awareness. So.
You mentioned in that, thank you for all that, by the way.
Did I answer your question in any way, shape, or form?
I can't remember what question I asked, but that was awesome. The question was just a lead for you to share whatever wants to be shared.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Yeti, and you made that sound like they were different, because I think in the UK we might use those words interchangeably.
Yeah, no, they're all the same. I'd say like Yeti, Sasquatch. It just, people call them all kinds of things. But there are different, like, just like there are different kinds of humans, there's different colors or different, tribes or whatever you want to call it, families, lineages, but for sure colors. Like I feel like there's some blueback, there's some silver, there's some that are more brown, there's some that are more black or gray. And as how they appear to us in our, not even necessarily like, I'm not talking about like encountering them in the woods, it's just like how they appear in their forms. Like it's really, I feel like they're these multi-dimensional beings that just kind of assume a form of, like Chewbacca and Chewie in Star Wars, like they assume a form that we can interface with. And it just so happens that somehow they chose this form of like the hairy, tall person, beast, but it's not like in their true essence, soul essence, there's so much more than that. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and the impression that was given of them, say when I was a child, was that they were kind of like very primitive. And if you see like a pecking order with us, with our superior ideas, would have felt that we were kind of like superior in that pecking order, and that they were more primitive. But that is not my feeling of them at all, that they're way more advanced than like, yeah, chalk and cheese, really.
It's interesting though, if you like, yeah, because like the Bigfoot chasers, the Bigfoot sightings, it's definitely like that group of people, humans, want the like, I don't know, it's an interesting thing, like, because I don't feel very resonant with them and their work, like I just recently joined a Facebook group, it's like Sasquatch Massachusetts, and people are all like asking things about them, and I was like, I wonder why I'm here, if I'm ever going to get brave enough to talk about telepathic communication, like with those dudes, like the guys that are on the like the channel for the like, whatever nature show of like, we're going into the woods and we're going to get cameras and we're going to find the Bigfoot. It's like, they wouldn't, they'd be like, this conversation you and I are having, and it'd be like, we're a bunch of like woohoos, but meanwhile they're like, it's all these gradations of beasts. But yeah, they get the bad rap of like, oh, they're killing farm animals, or they're like hairy beasts that are on the prowl for things. It's like, that's not my experience of them at all.
I can still see, I can't remember if it was from a TV program, but I can still see like some kind of cream colored rock, and there being a Sasquatch in front of it. But what I just got then was it morphing, like an octopus can kind of become its environment. That they would morph into the rock in the same way. So kind of still be there and probably go, can't see me, but kind of like morph.
For sure. That's a beautiful, like in the Finding Dory, the Hank, that like how he could like chameleon himself. For sure though. It's interesting with the cream colored, because there is the white. One of my friend's daughters just had a Sasquatch leave. Her daughter was like really wanting to, kind of like my daughter wants to see the fairy in the forest. Her daughter was like, I want an encounter with the Sasquatch. And so they went hiking into the woods, and like she found a stone. Like all the gift things that I've been gifted to them have been like white or like quartzy, or like white kind of fur, or white rocks, white stones, cream colored. So that's interesting that show. But I agree with you that's like they can just fade into the background, like they're not going to be stumbled upon by some loud dudes walking in the woods.
Yeah, they'd like feel them from miles away, you would think. So is there anything else that you would like to, that you want to be sure that you're sharing at the end of 21 and the,
Could we do some soundy stuff?
yeah,
I was thinking, I was
absolutely.
like, I know I got a full soul. When you asked me to come have this conversation with you, I got a full soul yes. But then my human self and the circumstances with my family and like just different things have been, and I was like, I'm going to show up for Denise because I told her I would and I made my commitment, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have a thing to say or a thing to talk about. I was like, well, I know that I can go out with Denise and we could just like tone and do sound stuff. If maybe that's kind of what I thought we were going to do today, but I'm glad we get to chat too.
I will.
Can you give your toys with you?
Just outside the door.
Okay.
Oh.
I'll start with while she's going to get her toys. I'll start with this one. Can you see it? So I have a quartz crystal pyramid hanging above me here.
Pyramid is downstairs.
I started without you. Or no, I just did the overlay, the top overlay.
I feel like I want to get my pyramid as well. That's downstairs. You carry on. I shall be back shortly.
So you can close your eyes and we join in this balancing of sound codes, energy. Bring your attention to your third eye, your mind's eye. And let's call in some Mercury.
Unfortunately, I think Zoom only captures the beginning of it.
Move your awareness down into your heart, your chest, shoulders, collarbones. Take a few big breaths into Venus. We'll just hold a quality of Venus in the heart space. And we're actually in a Mercury and Venus conjunction energy right now. Then I'll do them together to go with the conjunction. So this is Mercury with Venus, which they were exact conjunct yesterday, the 28th, but they're still there together in the sky. We're still under their influence. And it's okay if you can't hear it. It's still in your field. So one might use this conjunction of Mercury and Venus as aligning or bringing together what's in your heart and in your mind, your mind's eye, bringing into balance how you feel and how you think, and how you bring loving kindness into your thoughts. Thoughts for yourself, thoughts for your loved ones, thoughts for the planet. And I open the sound space for you, Denise, to continue in.
Thank you. So this isn't very loud, but if you just, as you were doing, just allow yourself to receive. So this is quartz crystal on the note of A, I think, or G. And let us just breathe those frequencies into our throat. That point between the head and the heart that many are experiencing deep, deep clearings from presently. Lad it int ad arnukul e kist. Al arna korot umma todo oren. Bihat ornt ai. Kole korot ad arna kia kiat od oren. Just seeing yourself surrounded by these cosmic heart frequencies. Breathing these cosmic heart frequencies into your heart. Breathing them in at the front and at the back of your heart. If you feel ready to do so, I invite us to begin to remove those deep set layers, especially around the back of the heart. Those layers of protection. And if you feel ready to allow yourself to become more vulnerable, to allow your heart to be more open. Over to you, Julie. Well, we seem to have lost Julie. I'm not sure at what point we lost her. Must have been the Sasquatch coming in and whisking her away. So I'm just going to see if she bobs back in. Check if there's a message from her. So let us breathe into our beautiful hearts, letting go on your out breath, breathing in love. Hilai et oranakala, mukulekiashta. Me ishtai elit od oranakaradaa. Oh. Mibil et ad aranakurdakan ikilekiatata. And inside your heart is an octahedron. And as you breathe love into that octahedron, it expands, growing larger and larger until it is bigger than your physical self. And the highest point is about a foot above your head. The sides outside your body, at least a foot outside, and the lowest point around a foot below your physical body. And this octahedron fills with light, whatever color you feel. And just see how it feels to be sitting within this octahedron. Breathing deeply. Kuleat arno kulekiano morat da'ai lekiashtan I elit iana. So if your eyes are closed, just opening them whenever you're ready. And I invite you to drink some water. And I want to say thank you to everybody who's been with us, either live or on the replay or on YouTube. If you haven't checked out Julie's website yet, then she will put the link either in the comments or I'll put it in the description. And I can't remember what her YouTube is, but we'll put that in as well. If you want to watch any more of the Love Speaks Loves, they're all on my YouTube as well, on Inner Peace with Denise. So feel free to check that out and subscribe. Hit the notification buttons, all that jazz. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Julie. Mwah. Love you, sweetheart. Thank you for an amazing call, as always. And we will see you again on Love Speaks Love another time. With lots of love from my heart to yours. Love, 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 love.